Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Learning Self-Love. I'm Darla Williams. I am your coach and mentor along the way on this journey to self-love. Today's subject matter comes with a heavy heart. I want to talk about boundaries. Boundaries are easily violated and not intentionally. And sometimes we fall to our own patterns and our old behaviors. And how do we begin to identify what we need to work on and what we need to do so that we can actually honor ourselves as well as someone else? So I want to start with actually saying that even though I work every single day really hard, not only with myself, but with others. A recent event in my life could have literally made me feel that I wasn't adequate enough to do what I do every day. But instead, I chose to use the skills that I have developed, the skills that I have, as well as the things that I've learned from others along the way in this platform, to actually navigate probably one of the hardest nights of my life. And I just want to say that when you really do have self-love, no matter what someone else has said or what someone else could do, none of those things matter when you love yourself, because it literally allows you to realize and recognize your own faults and be able to extend that love and respect to another. And so I just want to really talk about are you a respecter, and where does the boundary actually break? When do we break the boundary? What is appropriate? How can we tune in and actually make an alternative to those spaces so that we're actually being able to give someone else the space? Because I had to learn recently that just because I want to give love and express my love and express those deeper feelings, if somebody else is not, when Joe was not willing to hear those words at that moment because he just needed space, I have never been in a place in my life where somebody wanted space. It was automatically, you do this now. So we were coming from two different worlds, totally two different worlds. Mine is immediate, express the love, change the dynamic, push out the vibrations, do this now. And his was, I am in sensory overload. You can go and go somewhere else right now, because I can't even stand to see you. And that is just the vibrations. That was just the vibrations. It's not that that's what we really wanted to our heart. He wanted to receive the love and wanted to be heard. He wanted to be respected. I wanted to be heard and I wanted to be acknowledged. And we both felt rejected. We both felt utter rejection. And what could have happened is we could have climbed into the rejection and completely shut each other out and been like, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. I'm going to go off into my other world and do something else, because that didn't feel good for a moment. Do we need to harshly make decisions? Do we need to literally make a permanent decision in a temporary problem? We don't. But how many times do we, because we didn't take the time to navigate the waters that got rough? This is probably the hardest lesson to learn in life, is how to actually tune in the midst of the storm. How do you honor someone else if they need to have a space? Develop a alternative. I'm a speaker. I need a soapbox. And I'm not saying that, but to be ugly, I'm saying that I do. I just have so many words that live within me that have to come out every single day. I am a speaker. You can throw me in the middle of the stage, hand me a microphone, and I will be gladly to do it. I will run out there and take it and stand there because I have so much that I want to give to the world. But when somebody else isn't ready to receive those things, then I'm breaking the boundary when I'm pushing that. And when I upset the boundary, it creates a catastrophic effect because I can't tune in, tap in, and turn on to the immediate moment. Boundaries are important. And understanding that when something has happened, just because you came from a good heart space doesn't mean that you were all correct. You're just as guilty of breaking the boundary, even if it came from a good heart space. Out of love, you can still break a boundary. In love, you can still break a boundary. And out of that, what do you want to do with it? So I want to ask where you have acknowledged yourself, or have you ever acknowledged yourself for where you broke boundaries? And what would you like to share with others so that they know how to prevent it? How can they tune in? Go ahead, Matthew.
A couple things came up with this whole conversation as you were going along. So I got a few things here. One, we're all unique, and men and women handle things slightly differently. It's how we were raised as men too, which is part of the reason why I actually empathize with you there, because I'm also a person who needs my own private space kind of thing, especially when I start getting like in that heated feeling of, uh-oh, this isn't good. So I totally understand that boundary, and I know I've broken it for myself, broken it with my wife. You know, we've gone back and forth. We've been together for over a decade, so it's kind of like one of those things that comes up from time to time. So understanding each other and what the other person needs can help to facilitate moving through that issue, whatever that issue is. Now, how do we do that? Understanding the love languages, obviously, of each other. Like, what do you need? You need affirmation. What does he need? He needs some space. And you know, that's kind of how we work as well, me and my wife. Like, I try to like compliment her on stuff sometimes, but also there are times that she just like needs a hug, and so we just hug. And we make sure it's a longer hug because you know, after about 30 seconds or so, it starts releasing those feel good chemicals that attach you to the being you're being with. So that's two, I guess. And love languages is, there's a lot of them. I mean, I know there's basic ones. There's what, 4 or 5 basic ones? 5 basic ones. So if you understand that about each other and you go over that with each other, communicate it with each other, then when you get to those hard times, you'll have extra tools to step through it. And 3, think about the ultimate outcome. What is it that you want with this person? For me and my wife, for instance, again, since that's where I'm coming from, I know that ultimately I love her no matter what. That's not even like a question in my mind. I will always love her for the rest of my life because of who she is. I think she's an awesome human being. She's super smart and intelligent. She is a great mother. She has so many fine qualities about her that it's just a natural way of being with her. So if I know that ultimately, no matter how mad I get, no matter how upset things are, I know I can always still come back to her and be like, hey, I love you. And I will always get her love in return, because that's just a way of being with her. So thinking about that ultimate outcome, like relationships with our kids, for instance, I know I want them to live their best experience. So what is their ultimate outcome? They want to live their experience. Okay, what is that experience? Now I have to find a way to support that experience, whatever it may be, so they can live out their story, because it's not my story. They don't need any of my expectations or anything. They have their own problems to deal with. And I know as a teenager, we don't think, or as the young 20s, we don't think very well yet. Not till later, I feel, does the calmness come from these obstacles that we've all overcome over the 40, 50 years, if not longer or shorter, depending on how old you are. And when you're younger, it's a lot harder to wrap your head around those boundaries that we're talking about, though, and to actually respect those boundaries.
Right.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Lorraine, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, so with boundaries regarding my personal life, what I have decided in the art of learning how to love myself, the art of learning self-love, I have decided that I'm putting boundaries in place about things I will tolerate and won't tolerate when it comes to the way other people treat me, with the way that they speak to me, with the way that they act towards me. And if it doesn't meet my personal standards, then I'm going to demand an apology and explain like what they did wrong and why I think that I deserve an apology, just to facilitate further understanding. Another thing is like with the way my body is treated, because for many years I used and abused. I let my body be used and abused by guys. Some of the choices I made obviously were my own choice, but that was when I had a lower self-esteem and didn't really care as much about myself as I do now. So I'm in a really, really good headspace now regarding that. And I'm really proud of myself for having that respect for myself and for my body, because it's my body and it's not just, a receptacle for other guys to use however they so choose. So it's a respect thing. It's about what you'll tolerate and what you won't. And I don't know who said the quote, but it's something, it goes something like this. Something about how you let others treat you is what you teach them, like how to treat you, or what what you'll tolerate or what you won't. I can't remember the exact quote. I'm super tired right now, but it's something to do with whatever you're teaching others, like however you act is what you're teaching others. So basically, if you let them walk all over you, you're teaching them that it's okay to walk all over you. Or if you tell them that they have to treat you like with more respect, then they will. I don't know. I can't remember that quote off the top of my head, but anyways, so that's what I have to say about this boundary stuff.
Awesome. So I hear, Lorraine, that you're really coming through a lot, and that you truly have begun to identify that you needed to be a respecter of yourself first. Am I hearing correctly?
Yeah. And like after my breakup with Eddie, and I started thinking about all the things that I want out of a relationship, and what I will, I won't settle for just anything. Like I have standards now. So for me, I kind of relate those to boundaries, because if you don't meet them, then or if you like cross them in a bad way, then that's not what I want. Like, it's like almost like they're non-negotiables. That's what I kind of tell myself, like they're non-negotiables. Like, this is what I want. I'm not going to settle for anything less. And I'm sorry if you don't live up to my standards, then you're not the right person for me personally. Move on. You're not my person. So, yeah. And I'm pretty happy that I have come to these realizations, because for a long time, they were always kind of in the back of my mind, but they never seemed important enough to actually, for me to uphold them. And now it's like, they're like a wrought iron fence around me that's like protecting me. And sorry, like, I'm not going to open the gate unless you're worthy. So I feel pretty good about that.
That is actually very beautiful. Now, what we have a right to demand, I did hear you say that you wanted to demand others to respect. We don't have that space. We can't control another. So what we have the right is to demand our power back. And that has nothing to do with another. That has to sit with ourselves and actually begin pulling back the energy and the levels of whatever that we have invested into it. And taking our power back is literally allowing us to realize that regardless of the circumstance and the situation that has arisen, that I don't have to leave my energy in it. I can pull that energy back, bring it to myself, and allow myself to heal myself. No one else is responsible for healing me. I'm only responsible for healing myself. I cannot heal another. They're responsible for healing themselves. Now I can participate in the level of communication that is necessary to deliver what is required out of acknowledging my own faults out of it, as well as allowing them the space to be able to speak theirs, and then finding out whether or not there's a place that we can continue, or if there's a place that we need to respectfully let one another go. If you cannot come to a place of agreement, then it's obvious that you're never going to resolve it. But if you can both come to a space of communication and allowing both to be able to be vulnerable in it, then instantly you know that you have a space that can be grown upon and that you can continue to take the seed that was delivered and plant it and allow yourselves to grow. Those are really hard spaces to navigate, though, when you feel like your whole world has been violated. How do you go about it? How do you accept and how do you allow yourself to grow, knowing that you can't do it alone? We start off as the me, right? We become the we and ultimately the us. What does that really mean? My recent events have showed me that what that means is I can either stand in the me and it's all about me and you need to respect me and I don't have to be a respecter of you. That's the me. That's the me 100%. When do we become the we? When we begin to lay ourselves down and accept the other persons as well and acknowledge that both are at fault and we would have never ended up where we ended up. How do we become the us? When we realize that on the grand scale of life, how does this really measure up? How many times has this happened in the echoes of the world, of life, of situations? It's happened countless times. Are we bigger than that? Or are we part of that? Do we choose to rise above it or choose to live under it? We have a choice. And when you two come together and you make the choice together that you want to continue to grow, that choose this opportunity to expand and see that there is so much more that we can take to a whole nother level. You can literally set yourself aside. And when it bubbles up, honor yourself. Go sit with it. But that doesn't mean you have to keep dragging somebody else through it. You're literally going and sitting with yourself. You're healing you, and ultimately you're healing the world. Because everything that we can take and actually begin to digest, we actually transform and transmute it around the world. Because that's how we work, because we are an us.
What's your emotion about there, Darla? I'm curious.
Huh?
What's your that strong emotion? Where's that? What's the feeling from? What did you say that triggered that?
What did I say that triggered that? Knowing that the small effects of life that I can sit with and work on actually allows a vibration to go around the world to heal the world. Lets me know that I'm doing everything that I was intended to do and the whole purpose of why we're here today in the world. We're all part of elevating the consciousness around the world, and our part is literally working within ourselves so that we can heal it all the way around the world. It's not a, it's, yes, it is about working on yourself, but ultimately when you work on yourself, you literally transform and transmute the problems in the world so that the whole world can be healed. That's what made me emotional, is knowing that a small moment, a blip in time when we made a mistake, to acknowledge that mistake, to honor our space and do what we need to do and learn to create a new way to respect the other's boundaries, allows us to literally grow not only ourselves, but to be able to give that same gift to the world.
I love that. Well said. Yeah, that's how I. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to finish, Matthew, that's fine. I've had all sorts of thoughts bouncing through my head and I'm still trying to put them together. So if you want to finish, go for it and I'll speak after.
All right, I was just gonna say, yeah, that reminds me of when a long time ago when I was younger and I got married the first time when we went our separate ways. The big thing that I knew I needed to work on was how to communicate. So that was one of those boundaries that I put up as far as, hey, I'm going to communicate one way or another. And that's what shifted me into this fabulous relationship that I now have. Because of that reason, though, is because of that open communication that I needed to work on within the realm of my own relationship. So it's when you take that personal responsibility, work on that piece of you, it allows that growth. And you are so right, though, that small vibration can go worldwide, just like the butterfly effect. Beautiful. I love it.
All right. So yeah, obviously Darla and I are in a partnership for those watching the recording. But what's bouncing through my head is quite a few things. So I'm just gonna release in a rant method, which I'm pretty good at. Ultimately, when you think about it, we're all living our own reality. We are all alone in this world. Our perspectives, our thoughts are that of ourselves. When we come into a relationship, we can't assume the other knows every thought and how we view it with our own perspective. So when it comes to communicating, it's not only speaking, but it's listening. And if you fail at one or both, you will struggle with the communication. You either won't be heard or you won't be able to hear. You won't be able to speak what you need, what you desire, what helps. And that's one of the things Darla and I did struggle with is in those situations, I get very literal, and I know when my emotions are bubbling up and boiling, and I have to stop and walk away, because if my emotions get out of control, it's just that, out of control. And that's when things will get worse, because when you try to solve a problem in an emotional state, that problem will not fully be heard, spoken, understand, however your perspective use it. It's the fact of an emotional reaction is generally a bad reaction overall, because you're coming from a space where you're not consciously thinking or consciously aware, or put that conscious thought into what I'm about to say and how it may hurt or affect the other. And that's not always a fun place to go. And that's, like Matthew said, we as men, we might be a thing for all men, because men and women are different. Even though we have that masculine and feminine within us, we still jump to that ego. We fall into that space to where we have to literally calm ourselves, regroup, and come back at a later spot and say, look, this is where I was. This is why it hurt. But when you're in that emotional outburst, you can't see that light. It's dark, it's blinding, it's a space of such hurt, because we're all older, we're all 40 and above. We've been through a lot of hell. We've tolerated a lot of shit, like Lorraine, that should not have been tolerated, because at a young age, we don't fully understand how to create those boundaries, let alone how to make them stand when working with others. So it's always in motion. It's always a work in progress. And Darla and I have gotten through to the point where we realized we need that space, we need that moment to let emotions calm, and then we came right back to it. We didn't wait a week, a month, a year. No, once we could both, mainly me, once I could speak without that emotional hurt, we truly solved our problems. We truly got to speak and understand where we both messed up, where we both were not heard, where we both poorly communicated what we needed. And in that aspect, Darla and I are totally different. She, in that situation, needs to feel that love, needs to feel that touch. But myself, in that situation, I don't like being in my own skin. So to feel the touch of another, it hurts. It's ugly. I don't like it.
Sensory overload.
Yeah. So for me, I really have to calm my emotions down, evaluate the situation, hope the hell I didn't say some stupid ass shit out of anger, pain, hurt, past traumas, dramas, whatever. Because like I said, we have all been through some horrible stuff. And when I get to that point, I know I can say some dumb shit, and I can bite my tongue all I want, but if I'm being pushed to deliver what the other wants, I'm not going to deliver what the other wants. I'm going to break, scream, yell, say hateful things that I don't mean, but at the moment I don't realize how those words are going to come up. I don't evaluate words. Like, I barely have a filter, and when I'm in an emotional state like that, there is absolutely no filter. So it's the worst time for me to try and have a mature conversation, because I'm in the state of just no. So it was difficult for that whole situation to occur. But at the same time, we have both healed ourselves and found that love for ourselves, that we are able to come back and revisit those emotions and leave those emotions behind and discuss how we were affected, why we were affected, and and move forward. And I'm so grateful that I've met somebody who has healed more than I have, but who has healed quite a bit of traumas to be able to have that conversation after, instead of most people would just be like, F this, I'm done, I'm out, I'm not, I'm this, I'm that. And it's just, they walk away. There's no healing, there's no communication, there's no working through. I mean, even if we did discuss what happened, how we were hurt, we still could have decided to separate or to walk away. We could have hit pain points that really created a trauma in us that we could not come back from. And thankfully we did not, because Darla is an amazing person. And I know I'm amazing as well, even though I have my self-doubts at times. So I know that that was the biggest reason why I had to find my peace, find my calm, allow the storm to pass, and then dance in the puddles after of, hey, this is where I was at. This is why I had to step back. I couldn't give you what you wanted at that moment because I couldn't calm the storm in here that was creating so much chaos with the addition of what's going on around me. So it was a very unique bonding experience between us, and I don't want to go through it again to that extent. But at the same time, I'm so very grateful we did, because it did allow us to truly know ourselves at a deeper level. And we learned in this situation how we can talk to each other to keep it from escalating to that. So I think that's about all the points that were bouncing around in my head. So thank you for allowing me to just rant for a minute.
Something else I want to put in regards to what he's saying, because of the communication afterwards, we were able to establish an alternative solution. How were we able to do that? We were able to express, what it was within ourselves, how it affected us, being able to express what our, like you had said, Matthew, about the 5 love languages, which are encouragement, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and gift giving. Those are the 5 primary. There are many more, but the 5 primary that we can all come back to are those 5. So with the fact that we have that, when you stated that, what I was able to do was put myself in that space where, okay, I'm a speaker. I always have words. Well, those words aren't always received. Just because they're good, just because I know, just because doesn't mean that the other party is ready. So I had to come up with a solution. I've always been someone who has immediately, let's work on it. Let's deal with this now. Let's go. And he is not. He's the complete opposite. He needs the space. He needs the time. He needs to digest it. He needs to process it. He needs to pull himself back together out of his own craziness, wherever it took him. So the alternative, if that ever comes up again, and there's the conflict of energy of 2 different worlds, what do you do? Okay, I'm a speaker. Well, I can still speak. I have a pen. I have a notebook. And I can still say everything I need to say. But I can wait and deliver it when it's appropriate, instead of crossing the boundary and creating more division. I don't have to create more pain when they're already in pain. I can literally take, and I can still do what I need to do because I need to get it out just as much as they need that space to go and internalize and pull themselves back out. But I would have never known how to do that if we didn't go through our experience. And I would have never been able to give others a way out of that space. Yes, we all have a right to who we are, our own self-expression. But that doesn't mean that the other person wants it at that moment. It's not that they don't want it, it's just at that moment. So if we can maintain ourselves and go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I got a lot to say right now. And it might be ugly, it might not be. It might be absolutely beautiful. But when they're ready to hear it, it may be actually received instead of rejected. And you can protect yourself from your own rejection and your own self-sabotage. So that's what the purpose of sharing our personal journey is really about. Matthew, your hand's been up for a while. I know you're ready to speak. Come on, you need to come in on this one.
No, it's awesome, man. This is a great conversation. I think some things that are important to remember, as Joe was speaking too, was when we're younger, our brains aren't even fully formed until we're about 25-ish. It's a little above, little below, depending on that. So when we make mistakes when we're younger and we're still carrying those mistakes with us, it's good to remember that, hey, I was 20 years old when I made this kind of thought process start to happen. So now how do I take that thought process into my 40-year-old brain and like use it to create something more beautiful, something better, something more enhanced, instead of beating myself up over my 20-year-old mistake. You know, it's just like remembering that, hey, I was young at this point. My brain wasn't even fully formed. I didn't know how to form boundaries back then, but today I do. I mean, today's very easy to do that. But it took a lot of practice in between, right? So make sure that you're not comparing your 40-year-old, 50-year-old brain to your 20-year-old brain or 25-year-old brain, because it's such a different experience. Like it's such a different perspective. And then comparison. Can't compare your journey with others. Like I know, but Joe, even you just said that, oh, I don't think I've grown as much as Darla has, or she shows as much as she does, which is fine to say that. But because you say that, it gives that part, that comparison piece, energy. And that's what we want to try to avoid, is comparing our journeys with each other. With like, I can't compare my journey with my wife, who was a single mom for the longest time, you know, like there's no way I could walk in those shoes. But I think it's a beautiful thing to say, hey, I love your journey. I'm going to embrace your journey with you and be with you on that journey. And it just works then, because then you're not comparing the two. You're embracing your journey and her journey, or your self journey and your boundaries. Embrace those as well. It's the same thing. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want you to take a moment right now and reflect in your own life where you know that you've broken the boundaries, that you weren't the respecter of another. We all have it. We've all fallen short. We all fall short of the glory every day. No matter who we are, no matter how much we walk it, no matter how much we talk it, no matter how much we do it, we all fall. We all do it. How long do we want to stay there? We have the choice to immediately rise back up, shake it off, and keep moving forward. It's not wrong to take a moment, assess, feel out what you need to feel out. Get yourself to a healthy space. Put it up on the shelf. And if something bubbles back up out of it, sit with it. Honor it. Honor yourself. Heal it, no matter how many times you have to revisit. Don't allow it to consume you. You have a right to set it down and continue living each day. Take it in when it's appropriate. You don't have to let it control you. That is probably the best lesson I could have ever learned out of this week. I don't have to allow anything to control me. I have a right to control myself. And that is the best lesson anybody can learn, is that I have a right to control myself. And I give you permission to begin controlling yourself, because it's an amazing journey. Also, with the thoughts and the things that we just decided to acknowledge where we've fallen short in the boundary, I'd like to take that and allow you to allow yourself to be relieved of that by tapping into the fountain and allowing that flow to wash you through, cleanse it and heal it and restore it to the foundations of the earth, because we're all here to take our experience and share it with another so that they can grow too. As hard as it is sometimes, step out of your own skin and do what you got to do. It's easier to come out of the shadow once you do it and become the light. So how do we transmute the pain? We take it and allow it to wash us, wash through, release it, let it go, so it's no longer controlling us, and restore us with what's truth, that we're whole and complete. That was just a moment, that we just fell out of vibration. So whatever your story is, wherever you've fallen short, whatever it was that you realized that you've broken your own boundary or the boundary of another, I invite you now to go ahead and close your eyes, sit back, take in a deep breath. I want you to begin imagining that you're in the garden, that just behind you are the gates that are flashing open and closed. As the grass is grown and it's tall and the brush is tall and the trees are everywhere, that there's flora, that there is all kinds of flowers all over. You can see the birds, the bees, and in the center, you see the fountain. As the light cascading water effects come down from the top and it's flowing down into the base, you feel invited, you feel a call that it's time to release those painful places of boundaries that you've broken or others have broken against you. And I invite you to step up and down into the fountain, allowing as the water's cascading down, flow over your feet, rising up onto the calves and up to your knees. I want you to step forward and allow that cascading water effect that's been pouring down to pour over the top of you. And as you feel it coming down over you, I want you to go ahead and open the crown chakra, allowing the light and the waters to come in and start to pour into you, into your mind, illuminating and opening the third eye. Any vibrational story that you've harbored, that you've held, that you've kept within, that was a boundary that was broken to you, or one that you have broken to another. Give yourself permission to release it and let it go today into the waters. Pulling up this vibrational storyline, no longer allowing its effects to take root and cause any mayhem. Bringing that down, down, down into your throat, cleaning up the vibrational story, knowing that you are healed and cleansed and restored to the foundations of the earth. Down into your shoulders, down your arms, into your fingertips, and up into the heart space. Allowing these waters to flush out any animosity, any pain, any hurt, any confusion, frustration, irritation, discomfort. Bringing that out down into the solar plex and into the sacral. Between these two right now, allowing it to pull up any addiction, repeating patterns, down into the root of our very being, the truth of who we truly are, allowing our root to be refilled with love, love everlasting. Down into the thighs, into the calves, and into the feet, taking this story that was no longer serving us and depositing it into Mother Gaia as far away from us as possible, bringing back just the light, just the water, for full restoration healing to come into our feet, into our calves, into our thighs, into the root of our very being, to continue to raise the vibration of love for ourselves and those that we love, as well as the world around us. Bringing into the sacral, restoring us, into the solar plex, into the heart, allowing the warmth to mend anything, heal it all, be totally whole and complete as we were from the beginnings of the foundations of the earth. Back up into our throat. I'm going to go into the brainstem, into the frontal cortex, recalibrating all things to truth, that you are love, and that anything you do is out of love. Releasing and letting it go, and being thankful, because today you're healed. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Anybody want to share anything? Or do you want to sit with it for yourself? Make sure you drink lots of water today. Lorraine, go ahead.
So I just wanted to make a couple of comments on, first of all, thanking you for everything that you do. It's truly beautiful work, both you and Joe. And secondly, when I look at you two as a couple, I see so much awareness. You're very vulnerable today, Joe. And I haven't had many encounters with you, but this is the first time I've seen you be extremely vulnerable in talking about your relationship with Darla and your own personal demons that you struggle with. But I want to commend you on your awareness of what you perceive to be your problems. And Darla, on your understanding of and your patience, because I know you and I are very much alike. And, you know, when it comes to relationships, I don't know if it's a woman thing or if it's just, you know, because it's who we are. But we, you know, I'm very much like you. I want to fix things and I want to fix things now. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for you to, you know, for my partner to go ahead and, you know, take a day and a half to go process things. Like I want things to be perfect now. And unfortunately, that's just not how life works. And so the understanding, the patience and awareness that the two of you have with each other, I perceive as being a strength in your relationship, because it has brought you closer and closer together, even though at times you might feel like you're miles apart. And Joe, there's something that you said that really struck me as kind of odd, when you said that you don't want to be touched when you're in like your fit of anger or whatever it is that you want. I would just like to remind you that a touch is filled with love. For me, I'm a very touchy-feely person, and I don't know if Darla is or not, but for me, anytime I have tried to show other people some kind of love and comfort, it's always with a physical touch, whether it's holding their hand, touching their shoulder, going in for a hug, and to be pushed away when someone's trying to do that for you, it's hurtful. And I know that you don't mean to, add to the hurt that's been created. So maybe looking at physical touches through a different lens might give you a different outlook.
One of the
on-
things
on that.
I want to interject something here, Lorraine, on that. I have to accept, just because that's my love language doesn't mean that he's wrong.
No, I know that completely. Like, everybody's entitled to feel however they want to feel.
He truly has a sensory overload. He deals with energies on such an extreme level because he is a master of Reiki, that when the vibrations are two different vibrations, regardless of who's in the right or the wrong, it's still too much. And it literally causes something within him that is physically uncomfortable. So it's not an appropriate time, just because I need physical touch to resolve a circumstance, doesn't mean that I have a right to touch someone if they cannot endure just a physical touch of a good hand touch, that it's still not acceptable, because I have to respect the boundary. That's the
Right.
purpose of the class, was talking about the boundaries. So I wanted to really reiterate that in regards to that part. So no, there was nothing wrong in what you were saying. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I was going to agree. There is nothing wrong in what you're saying. Just for me, in that I will call it an extreme emotional state. In those moments, I don't even like being in my skin. I don't like my own skin touching me. So to be touched by another, it creates more discomfort, more dis-ease, and that will basically, it will further escalate the situation, because it further makes me want to get further away from what's going on. And like the following day, we tried speaking again. I think it was the following day. The following day, we tried speaking again, and I was in a better state of mind. And when Darla was reaching her emotional state, I looked at her and I told her, I am not angry. I can give you personal touch right now. Would you like it? And we did. We held. So it's not that I don't want her to touch me ever again. It's just in that moment, I I can't receive it. And it's not that I don't want it. I love Darla's hugs. I love her kisses. Like, she's got the cutest little hands when she wraps around my hand. But it's in that moment, I am not in a place that I can receive it positively. It creates the opposite reaction that she is wanting to give. And that was one of the things that we really discovered. And I didn't even realize this about myself. And when she's like, you're over sensory, or however she said, I'm like, oh, did you, what? Like
Sensory overload. I acknowledged what it is. I literally went to the medical experience of what he's dealing with. It's a sensory overload.
And it's something I've dealt with my whole life, from the sexual abuse, the child abuse, the just abuse from friends, others, schoolmates, and all of that. It's not something that I can openly receive at that moment. I literally have to calm myself to the point where I can receive again. And in that moment where I can't receive, just I have to have that alone time to come back to myself, to find my thoughts, to calm them, to get back from out of the mind and back into the heart. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And in those moments, like, I would have loved to have given her the hug. And I did feel like crap that I couldn't, but I knew that if I would have tried, it would have created more hurt emotions. So I'm very grateful that we've learned a few things about ourselves, and we now know how to proceed forward in those situations. And it's ultimately going to create a stronger bond that is going to make us even more unbreakable.
Yeah, and I think that awareness that you both have is just, it's so amazing, and it's such a nice, it's so nice to witness that, because in so many relationships, I know in past, mine in particular, there hasn't been an awareness on either person's part. And and it does take time to learn about yourself. And then once you learn about yourself, you're able to more, explain to other people what it is that you need, because oftentimes we don't even know ourselves what we need. And so I think that the fact that you guys have that awareness is just absolutely incredible,
Yeah,
because many people don't have it.
I wrote Matthew privately in the chat that when I recognized Darla was better at that self-healing, that's all that it was. I wasn't putting myself down. It was a recognition that Darla has found these tools to help you get back to yourself, to that space of love. And I was recognizing that I really need to finish her course. I'm halfway or slightly over. And that's only a half-assed job. I need to complete it. I need to go back and finish it. And I know that I will be able to stand taller, stand stronger. I know in those moments that I will be able to calm myself quicker and speak what I need better instead of the mess that occurred.
Yeah.
I know for me, after taking that course, I finished it, I think last week, one of the recently. And I'm still doing my very final day's work, because there's so much that I have learned about myself. It has been an absolute incredible journey that I have been on it's been probably about 3.5 to 4 months, because I did stop for a couple of weeks while my father was dying. And and I allowed myself to take that time that I needed. And then when I felt I was ready, I returned to it, and I continued. There were days where there was so much going on that I just, I would put it off until the next day. And then I would end up feeling guilty about it, because I wasn't making myself the priority that I know I needed to be. And so, I would play catch up the next 2 days and do 2 days work into one. And, and the days where it said, oh, just, take some time for yourself. There's no homework today. It was like, so amazing. It's like all my hard work's paying off, and I get a treat now, and I get to, just go and do whatever I want. And it was like so amazing. So there's so many different things, and I'm still working on, the testimonial for you. I've, with everything going on this past week, I have
You've
not
had
had
a
been
lot.
able to focus. I know, between mom being in the hospital, the cats being diabetic and needing insulin injections on a regular schedule of every 12 hours, and then me having to do these eye drops 4 times a day and trying to get everything all lined up. It is, it's like, yeah, life will throw you one curveball after another. Like, exactly, Joe. Like, I know how you feel.